Hello and welcome to another edition of the Top 10 in 10. Patrick, what's the Top 10 in 10?
So it's where we rapid fire answer your questions that we pulled from the Spartansuppz and Zach Budge and Spartan's Crew Instagram story questions, and we answer them in 1 minute or less. So let's fire away with episode 2.
Beautiful. All right, number 1, top hormonal stack for getting thick.
Thick and big. So you're looking for something that's going to optimize testosterone. It's going to optimize your estrogen control and will support free testosterone as well. So the 2 products I would go with would be Redcon 1 Broomstick, because it's really complete all-in-one, because it's got something to elevate your natural testosterone, to elevate free testosterone. It works on multiple pathways. There's also a great source of vitamin D3 in there as well for helping with utilization of hormones and general sense of well-being. And it's got a really nice estrogen modulator in there to keep test and keep estrogen sort of at bay. Plus, the other one that's a really good one as well is the Myblocks hormonal combo with Contra and Mania. Again, creates a similar sort of situation to Broomstick. It's a little bit more complete. It's also a little bit more expensive because there's 2 products, but both of them are very, very good setups, and be happy with either one.
Question number 2, best fat loss products.
In terms of supplements for fat loss, I'd say number 1, you must be tracking your calories and you must be in a mild caloric deficit, 1 to 200 calorie deficit at most for most people, and you need to be lifting weights basically to stimulate muscle tissue, or whatever you are taking in terms of supplements is not going to be effective. It won't be allowed to do what it needs to do. In terms of the supplements I would like to see someone take, number 1 would be actually a gut health and digestion product. So I'd either go with Myblocks Martian or Switch's Vitality Switch to keep our digestive system running well and functioning at an effective rate. Our number 1 fat burning organ is our liver. So if our liver's clogged up, we're not going to be able to burn fat effectively, and our cortisol will be raised, which helps to hold on to fat loss, to body fat. So something to optimize our digestive system. A source, making sure our protein intake is sufficient, so using a whey isolate maybe to help hit those numbers and keep your calories under control. And the last one would actually be something to modulate estrogen. I would probably look for girls, I'd use Alpha Venus or Core Hard, and for guys, I would use Contra from Myblocks.
Question number 3, best overall protein.
Ooh, that's a pretty loaded question.
Very broad question.
It's very broad. So really, like, in terms of there's not a massive difference, even between a whey isolate and whey blends. We're not talking about absolute monstrous amounts of difference in terms of their macro profile. For the most versatile protein you could use for anything, I would get a whey isolate, because they are low carb, low fat, low lactose, and fast digesting. Typically, most food sources are slower digesting, so you get exactly what you want out of a protein. You want it to be fast digesting, so it's something you can have after you train, have it in the morning as part of your breakfast scenario. You have a smoothie, mix in your oats, whatever. You can always add fats and carbs to it to help slow it down. So I would go for a whey isolate, and the top 3 I would pick would be Primeval Isolate, Redcon Isotope, and Rule 1 R1. They're all exactly the same.
What to look for in a weight belt?
This is a really good question, actually. We get asked this quite frequently because there is honestly a lot of shitty belts on the market in terms of their design. So a belt is designed to help you to brace and increase intra-abdominal pressure, which by virtue of the name comes from inside your abdominals, inside your intra-abdominal, inside your abs. It doesn't help to protect your back. That's a massive misconception. It's designed to give you something to push out against, to help keep you tight, and to allow you to basically Valsalva or hold your breath better. When you breathe in, you should breathe in through your nose and breathe into the pits of your stomach and get all the air into your upper abs, and basically imagine someone's going to punch you, and they could punch you from the front, from the side, from anywhere, so you're tight. A belt just goes around there, so it should be worn up a little bit higher, and it should be the same thickness, same width I should say, the whole way around. So typically the width of a belt is 100 mils, and I would recommend, that's why we only do one type of belt. The Spartan's lever belts are a lever design, simple and easy to open and close. They're 10 mil in thickness, and they are the same width the whole way around at 100 mils. So that would be the only type of belt I would recommend that's the same width. If it gets smaller at the front, that is exactly where you want the support, or you want the tension. It's where you're going to be pushing. So having it wider at the back is a complete waste of space. If anything, you'd wear the belt the other way around, have the thin bit at the back and the thick bit at the front.
Question number 5 from Big Drew. We got best subs for a strength athlete.
Ooh, that's a good one. So I would say, assuming that you're hitting a sufficient amount of calories and protein, we're going to do that from whole food sources and protein, which I don't really consider a supplement, a food source. So the next three that I would take in order of priority. I'd go creatine. Creatine hydrochloride is my preferred format for digestive uptake and utilization. Next up, I would go Primabol, or Mediator is the compound, from either Primeval Labs or Redcon 111 Bravo. Both great natural anabolics that are fantastic for strength. And then the next one on there would be something to increase our testosterone production, because more test equals more strength, basically. The higher your natural/free testosterone, the better your strength capacity. It varies person to person, obviously based on our genetics. However, more test equals more strength capacity. So for that, same products that we mentioned earlier: Broomstick, Mania, Contra.
Question number 6. How much protein do I need per day to grow?
So whether your goal is to lose weight or to gain muscle, it's about the same amount. It's not going to vary a huge degree. In a muscle building or a caloric surplus scenario, it would actually be a little bit less, if anything. So the most protein-sparing nutrients are carbohydrates and fats. So if you have a caloric excess, if you require 3,000 a day and you're eating 3,500, there's not as much of a demand on your body for protein, because it knows, I'm safe, I've got enough food, I'm not going to die. So 2 to 2.5 grams per kilo of body weight. So if Zach, you weigh about what, 80 odd kilos?
Yeah, 80.
So you need 160 to 200 grams per day. If you hit 160 one day, 170 the next, and 180 the day after that, don't stress. As long as you're within that range, your body will be just fine to work it out. Don't overcomplicate it. If you're in a diet scenario, I'd probably prefer to be like just a smidgen over to have a little extra, and maybe go towards, let's say, the 200 side of that. But that's more than sufficient. There's not really any upside to having. If you have twice the amount, you won't grow twice as fast, unfortunately.
Question number 7. Keto switch. Will it get me shredded?
It can contribute to getting you shredded. The most important part of any supplement is that you are allowing it to work. The saying that I like is that nothing works unless you do, and that is definitely the case when it comes to any fat loss oriented product. So Keto Switch is a combination of 3 types of BHP salts. There's some ingredients in there to help with fat metabolizing. There's some free form amino acids to help with muscle preservation. And there's also some ingredients to help with more like mood and mental focus as well. I actually drink Keto Switch throughout the day typically, because it's really more for like mental function, satiation, and so on. If you have a tendency to overeat, and you know that you're a closet fatty and you just eat way too much food, you have trigger foods and you just go nuts on huge amounts of food, following more of an intermittent fasting plan would be a really good idea, because it just shortens up your eating window. And the most important thing is not what types of food you eat, it's just how much you eat. So having Keto Switch throughout the day, it's really good for keeping your appetite at bay. You don't think about eating at all. So if you end up fasting for 8, 12, 16 hours and you shorten up your eating window, you're putting yourself in a good position to be able to lose body fat, particularly if you don't want to follow a rigid, I have to eat every 2 minutes meal plan.
Question number 8. BCAAs or EAAs?
It doesn't really matter. It's definitely been trumped up as a really big argument. Unless the only time it would be different, there'd be a difference between them. So the context of this battle between the two is that branch chains don't signal protein synthesis unless they have the other essential amino acids. The only condition you would ever get into that scenario is if you were fasted of protein for more than 24 hours, which we would never, ever, ever do. And if you are, you're nuts. You're never going to do that. When would you ever have not eaten protein for over 24 hours? That's just not that's never happened. I'm 31 years old. It's never happened in my life yet, so it's probably not going to happen again. So personal preference on BCAAs or EAAs, either one is fantastic. Sip them while you train. They are proven to increase anabolism and decrease muscle breakdown. Definitely use them. Very effective. As to which one, it doesn't make a difference at all.
Question number 9, and this is probably my favourite question of the week. New Spartans apparel, and I notice you're wearing one today.
I am wearing a couple of pieces. I have one of these fresh new hoodies, which is super warm and super comfortable. So we've got a bunch of new items that are dropping over the next couple of weeks. There's a container more of extra items that are still en route. Once they get in, we're going to get the whole range released, all together. There's going to be unisex joggers in 5 different colorways. There is scrunch bum leggings in also 5 different colorways. There's booty shorts for the women in 5 colorways. There's restocks of a bunch of popular items like the women's crop t-shirts. There's a new design in crop t-shirts. There's restocks of men's t-shirts. There's restocks of singlets. There is a whole bunch of new hoodies with a bigger size range, and they're the best, most premium hoodies we've ever done. They're a 350 GSM, so they're super warm and comfortable and soft. Basically, they're badass. Plus all of the new range that just dropped, all the accessories, bags, etc. So about 1 to 2 weeks, so stay tuned for those.
And final question for the day, thoughts on 1RM for muscle growth?
If your goal is to get bigger and stronger, think of 1 rep maxes as testing your strength and seeing where you're at. There's not really much carryover at all to building your strength. So if you take an example, look at the extremes. You take a Mr. Olympia bodybuilder. Let's say you take a Luke Sando, someone who's really big and really strong. He wants to get big and he's using strength as a method to get there. But you'll rarely see him do super low repetitions because they're more sarcoplasmic, like nervous system adaptations, and they don't really carry over to getting bigger. Plus, the risk of injury is through the roof, and there's no benefit. So I would not recommend anyone whose goal is to get bigger testing their 1 rep maxes on a frequent at all basis. I would say unless your goal is to compete in powerlifting, the risk definitely outweighs the reward. Like I compete in powerlifting, I would very rarely test my 1 rep maxes. Might get near them, but very far away from actually maxing out and failing, because when you fail, you don't really achieve anything. You've roasted your nervous system, potentially opening yourself up to injury, and you've pretty much wasted the workout, because after it, you're completely cooked if you've really maxed out and you've got nothing that day, and the next day you're dead as well. So if you can't do it for 3 to 5, probably a little bit heavy, and you could I'd rather someone do 3 sets of 3 at a relatively heavy weight than 1 set of 1 that they missed.
And quality reps too.
Quality matters when it comes. Like when you've done a really ugly bench press, you're like, that was shit. The quality reps allow you to progress. The crap ones just send you further back. You're like unlearning the technique, and you want to get as good as you possibly can at it so you can become a master of the movement.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Well, thank you for tuning in for the top 10 in 10. Thank you for your questions. And for your questions next week, drop them down below.
Drop in the comments or jump on to Zach's, myself, or the Spartansuppz main IG accounts and submit your questions. Follow us on story, and we'll be able to capture your questions and answer them in the next episode.
We'll see you next week.